Civics and American Government. Welcome back, guys. Hope everybody's doing well. We are week four, day three. Sorry, my dog ripped my headphone out of my head. Cruising along, we're on the home stretch, guys, and we've officially made it from talking about the federal government to talking about local and state government. One of the last segments of the Georgia government standards. So we're going to be jumping around a little bit, hopping around from topic to topic, but it's all going to be about, today it's going to be about state government. We'll talk about city and county government later on, but right now I want to go through, I just went to the stateofgeorgia.gov website and read a little bit about the people who are currently occupying these very important positions within the state government here in Georgia. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through 5 or 6 people, more than that, 6 or 7 people. And then after that, we're going to do a deeper dive into the state legislature, the General Assembly. So a lot of this stuff is going to be the same as the federal Congress, federal legislature, but some of it's going to closely resemble what we have at the federal level, but it's slightly different. And you'll find that some rules are universal. It doesn't matter who you are, what state you are. If certain federal rules, there's no wiggle room for a governor or a mayor, etc. But some things where there is a little more leeway, for the states. So let's get going. Our current governor is a man named Brian Kemp. He's the 83rd governor of Georgia, and he took office in January 2019. Kemp's political career began when he served as a state senator from 2003 to 2007. He served as Georgia's Secretary of State from 2010 to 2018. Kemp has recently made national headlines because he made an announcement that Georgia was going to be, quote unquote, reopening just in the next couple of weeks. And that is contrary to what most health experts are suggesting. So he's really drawn a lot of criticism from the left, for a lot of people on the right who feel like this quarantine is a violation of their civil liberties. He's a hero. And that's just the way it goes in politics. When you make a ruling, whether you're president, mayor, governor, or whatever, school board leader, if you make a decision on a controversial topic, half the people are going to think you're a saint and half will think you're the devil. That's just the way it goes. Kemp, you see here, he was Secretary of State for 8 years. He had a long run as Secretary of State. That got interesting in 2018 because Kemp was running for governor against a woman named Stacey Abrams, who you may have heard of. Kemp, of course, is a Democrat. Kemp is a Republican. Abrams is a Democrat. And their election was so close that it had to go to, basically they had to take extra measures to determine who the winner was. The thing is, the person who is in charge of gubernatorial, which means governor elections, is the Secretary of State. So Brian Kemp was in basically a tie or something very close to a tie with his opponent, Stacey Abrams. And yet again, there was criticism, people saying, he ought to sort of recuse himself, let somebody else handle this. But, and you can understand why he did not want to do that. If we have time at the end of this lecture, I'm going to show you a campaign ad that Kemp did. That, again, like anything, like just about anything, some people thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Others thought it was atrocious. So maybe we'll make time for that. The lieutenant governor is a guy named Jeff Duncan. Duncan took office in January 2019 as well, where Kemp was a Georgia state senator before taking office. Duncan was a representative, member of the state House from 2013 until 2018. The Attorney General, and just I know you guys already know this, but these are all like this is Georgia's Attorney General. You guys know we've been talking about William Barr for months now, the national Attorney General, but in Georgia it's a guy named Chris Carr. Chris Carr took office in 2016. He was our 54th Attorney General. And he was elected again to a new term in 2018. Mind you, this is from the Georgia, like the .gov website, but it says here, Carr believes there is no more solemn responsibility than to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia, in the interests of the people of the state of Georgia. Truthfully, I couldn't tell you a whole lot about Carr's political career. Any notable cases he may have presided over, or may have worked on. So I'll look that up, guys, and try to find out a little bit more about Carr, because this is a pretty dang lofty promise to protect and defend the Constitution, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll take a look into that. I will. And I'll try to give you guys a little more information about him tomorrow. The Secretary of State is a man named Brad Raffensperger. He took office in 2019, and prior to that, he was a member of the Georgia House of Representatives. So a lot of these guys, I don't know if you're noticing a theme, but it's very common for a politician, a state level politician, to parlay a job in the legislature into a even more high profile job. A lot of people, including like Jimmy Carter, who went on to be president, a lot of people use the state legislature, the General Assembly. They use that as sort of a stepping stone, and others just stay in those roles because it's not the same as being a national legislator, but it's a very prestigious position in the state, especially being a state senator. The school superintendent. This is not just like a principal, right? Principals are very important. They handle a lot of administrative things. They make difficult decisions, but the superintendent presides over all of that. And you see here, he is literally dealing with 1.7 million students in Georgia's public schools. And Richard Woods sells himself as championing child-focused classroom center policies. We'll look later on at the county, like the Savannah and Chatham County School Board. Things get very testy in these school board meetings. So Richard Woods has his work cut out for him. And you guys already know, I mean, we're lucky to be at Savannah Classical Academy, but the public school system in Georgia is ranked very low among the states. So a tough job for Richard Woods. The Commissioner of Agriculture, this guy named Gary Black. He was president of the Georgia Agribusiness Council for over 20 years before getting elected Commissioner of Agriculture in 2011, and he's now been in that office for 9 years. Black is a self-proclaimed champion of food safety, science-based environmental stewardship, and through Georgia Grown, the local agriculture movement. The Commissioner of Labor is a man named Mark Butler. Like a few of the other guys we've talked about, he was a legislator in the state house, took office in 2011, and has been in office for 9 years. Butler says that he's aiming for a full hire economy with a focus on helping job seekers apply for jobs and receive unemployment benefits, and to build partnerships with private industry to connect those job seekers with employers. So Butler, the Commissioner of Labor, is a big position, no doubt about it. These all are. Public Service Commissioner. There are, I think, 4 of these, possibly 5. But one of them, a guy named Jason Shaw, he was also a state rep. And he represents PSC District 1, which is the southern portion of the state that stretches from Macon to Savannah, where we live. In District 2, it's a man named Tim Eccles. Eccles came up in the nonprofit sector before taking office in 2011. District 2 covers the eastern central portion of the state, from Gwinnett County to Screven counties. He works to promote clean energy initiatives, and he talks about the importance of nuclear waste, of properly disposing nuclear waste. That place I used to work for, the nonprofit, they were really big into that. Proper waste disposal. Gwinnett, which, as you guys all know, 2004 all-county football. Young man named Mike Pope. Gwinnett's also the birthplace of the Migos. So Eccles he's got an important job. He's protecting sacred ground. Chuck Eaton represents District 3. He's been in office for 13 years. And District 3 is the metro Atlanta area. Metro Atlanta, that is basically not, there's like Atlanta proper, they call it, or the actual city of Atlanta. And then there's Metro Atlanta, which includes the surrounding areas. To gain a better understanding of the judicial issues he faces, he began attending classes at the Georgia State Law School in 2009 and studies nights as he works towards his degree. Lauren Bubba McDonald. He is a man, by the way, named Lauren. I can't say that I've ever come across that, but more power to him. He was also a state rep He represents District 4, which is across the North Georgia mountains to the South Carolina border. Tricia Pridemore, the first female we've talked about today, if I'm remembering correctly. She was appointed by Nathan Deal, our previous governor, to the Commission of Public Service in 2018. And she was reelected that same year. She represents PSC District 5, including Cobb, which is where the Braves play. So again, important stuff. All right. Now we're going to talk about the General Assembly as a whole. I've already mentioned the House of Representatives and the Senate. Excuse me. But only in the context of people having worked there before they moved on to a higher office. Now I want to talk about the actual General Assembly or the state legislature. General Assembly, and this is coming off of the .gov, the official state government site, is a form of representative government that has existed in Georgia since 1751. Its modern embodiment, known as the Georgia General Assembly, is one of the largest state legislatures in the nation. The General Assembly consists of two chambers, the House of Reps and the Senate. So in that way, it's the exact same. It has been in operation since 1777, when Georgia became one of the 13 original states and revoked its status as a colony of Great Britain. Good times in Georgia back there, 1770s. The location of its meeting has moved along with each move of the state capital. So the capital now, of course, is in Atlanta, but first it met right here. Then Augusta, Louisville, and Milledgeville. I didn't even know there was a Louisville, Georgia, frankly, until I started researching. Like I said, it's settled in Atlanta, and they meet in the state capitol, which is a really cool building. I used to drive by it on my way to school. It has a gold dome and granite foundation. Why don't we take a second and look at the there it is. Really is a really cool building. That's actually gold up there. Cool stuff. I went and went to a demonstration right here on these steps. It's pretty cool. Moving on. Every 2 years, Georgia voters elect members of the legislature. These elections occur in even numbered years. So like 02, 4, 6, etc. The qualifications for holding office in both houses, as well as the size of both chambers, are established in the Georgia State Constitution. Right? So we have our own Constitution. First, we're going to talk House of Reps, then we'll talk State Senate. The House of Representatives, sometimes referred to as the lower house, is the larger of the two chambers. Its 180 members represent districts from across the state, and it's presided over by the Speaker of the House, who is elected by the entire membership. The Speaker has always been a member of the majority political party and has the power to schedule debates, to vote, and assign members to committees. So it's elected by the entire House, but they're never going to, the majority party in the House is never going to uh, elect a speaker from a different political party. That just wouldn't make sense. And the Speaker of the House has significant power. Maybe the biggest role they have, or the most impactful power they have, is the ability to assign the leaders of committees. Current speaker is a guy named David Ralston, who was selected in 2010. There are also, you guys hopefully remember this from talking about the legislative branch in the federal government. There's majority leader, minority leader, and something called a floor leader. The majority leader is responsible for advancing the agenda of the majority party in the House, while the minority leader is responsible for advancing the cause of the minority party. That makes sense. The floor leader promotes the governor's interests in the chamber. Much of the work of the House is done in 36 standing committees. See, guys, that's why we're jumping all over, because we just talked about the federal bureaucracy, but our state bureaucracy is massive and incredibly complex as well. So the Georgia House is done in 36 standing committees, and at the start of each 2-year session, each member is assigned to 2 or 3 committees, which are organized by topics, so like agriculture, education, taxes, etc. Each political party's leadership selects members to serve on the committees, and that ensures that the parties are effectively represented in the process. Thus, the party composition of committees is proportional to the party composition in the House. So you're not going to have a committee with nothing but Democrats or nothing but Republicans. At least that's the idea. The Speaker of the House selects the chairs of each committee. We just said that. Since the Speaker belongs to the majority party in the chamber, all the committees are chaired by members of the majority party. Legislation passes through the committees where it can be amended, changed, or killed. Members, therefore, actively seek to be placed on committees that deal with issues important to them personally and to their constituents. To serve in the House, an individual must be at least 21 years old. So you guys can do it in just a few years. Other requirements include residency for at least a year. So you don't have to have been born in Georgia. For at least a year in the district that he or she represents, and residency in Georgia for at least 2 years. So you have to have lived in your district for 1 and Georgia for 2. The state Senate, because like the federal government, our state legislature is bicameral, of course. The state Senate is very similar to the House, but the Senate is a smaller body with 56 members who represent districts from around the state. The chief officer of the Senate is the lieutenant governor. So similar to like the vice president's role. Unlike the speaker, who's elected by the members of the House, the lieutenant governor is elected by all the voters of the state. Because of that, the lieutenant governor may be a different political party member than the majority of the senators. This was actually the case in 03, 04, 05, 06, when the lieutenant governor was a guy named Mark Taylor, a Democrat, and The Senate was majority Republican. Mark Taylor, actually, I played Pee Wee football with his son Fletcher, in case you were curious. That scenario, when the lieutenant governor is a different political party than the majority in the Senate, is very tricky. You have to balance politics and the investment of significant authority in the president pro tempore of the Senate, who is the leader of the majority party. So if the lieutenant governor is a Democrat and the leader of the majority party, let's say the majority party is Republican, then the idea would be for the lieutenant governor to work closely with the president pro tempore. There are 26 committees in the Senate, and senators are required to serve on at least 3 committees during their 2-year terms in the General Assembly. Just like the House, party affiliations of Senate committees are proportional to the party affiliations of the Senate as a whole. The lieutenant governor appoints the chairs of the committees, which results in, well, you guys, we just read about that. I didn't mean to repeat that. So the Republican Party was majority party in the Senate, but the lieutenant governor, Taylor, appointed Democrats to chair some of the committees. And to serve on the Senate, an individual must be at least 25 years old. Other requirements include residency for at least a year in the district and Georgia for 2 years. So the same as the House, except that you have to be 25 instead of 21. So what does that look like? What does this all look like when it's in action? Well, representatives meet in January in Atlanta, and they start the legislative session, they call it. The legislative session lasts for 40 days, and the idea is to, it says deliberate, essentially to discuss and hash out issues that are important to Georgia. Sometimes this 40 days is broken up, so that gives members time to work with their committees or to go home and meet with the people in their district. Oops. What happened? What have I done? Well, we'll pull it up on here. This is GeorgiaEncyclopedia.org. Each January, we talked about that. The General Assembly uses a committee system to accomplish its legislative tasks. So they meet year round, even when they're not in session. And committees can meet and talk about these issues and this proposed legislation in greater detail. So that allows legislators to specialize on a few major things as opposed to being having their attention drawn around by by everything, by having to address everything. Typically, they adjourn or they dismiss in late March, after the major legislative business is done. If there's a crisis of some kind or anything like that, the governor can call the General Assembly into what they call a special session. The most important function, and we'll stop after this, the most important function of the General Assembly is to pass the state's operating budget. And we'll explore the budget later this week, possibly tomorrow. In fact, approximately half of the hours spent in session are related to the budget. That includes establishing spending priorities, setting tax rates. Additionally, lawmakers must enact other laws on a broad array of topics from education to roads to transportation. So, like budget, Governor Kemp seemed like he was on board with, or was on board with, a significant pay raise for teachers. But then we get a pandemic virus breakout. It shuts down business in the state for however long. And suddenly Georgia financially, like every other state, is in a bad spot. So just budget priorities being what they are, or just the realities of the situations that's facing our state, they cut the teacher pay raise, which frankly, you can understand, right? I do. I mean, we've just got other things to spend money on right now. So we haven't talked about Georgia much at all this semester. I'm really glad that we have a chance to do that right now. With that, let's see here. This is U.S. history, so we want to go over here. No assignment tomorrow or today, day 3, Wednesday. Just an additional resource you can check out. And then tomorrow, Thursday, we'll have a lesson and an assignment. So nothing new due today. You guys stay safe. Be nice to your siblings. Don't drive your parents nuts. I'll talk to you tomorrow.